up all of Tennessee's fan base with that performance against Florida. What do you think?
Man, he was so fun to watch. My goodness, he was fun to watch. He was on fire. Efficient from the 3-point line, got whatever shot he wanted, mid-range, 3-point shot, getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line, making those shots. It was one of those nights where the rim was as big as an ocean. Man, he was fun to watch, man. I enjoy watching this basketball team. I couldn't wait to see them play against Georgia. That was a show, and then we got another show at home in front of a crowd that a lot bigger than what I expected.
It was bigger than I expected as well. Tennessee fans made their way however they had to do that. Some by roads. I've seen some that were walking to Thompson Bowling Arena at Food City Center. They were going to make sure they got there. And I think everybody who did was glad that they did to see that show. And I'll mention it often, and I'm sure it's no fun to hear that at some point your shooters are going to go cold. And I think fans have probably thought, okay, well, 28 points at Mississippi State, 36 points at Georgia. Dalton Knecht, we can't expect him to do that again. And then he outperformed himself, going for 39. He was trying to get 40. He took a couple of shots maybe that Rick Barnes didn't like. I'm not sure there's a maybe about it. Even Dalton said after the game, yeah, I'm sure he didn't like those. But the fans wanted him to try to get 40. He wanted it, of course, and his teammates wanted it for him. Then Rick Barnes called the timeout late and took him out in the final minute. But that was a show, and Jonas Adu had a big performance. Those two guys together, what they're able to do, not just in a box score, but running some pick and roll. There is a dangerous aspect to the offense when those guys are on. But Dalton Knecht, he is not only getting the attention of Tennessee fans, but around the SEC, people realize what's happening, and around the nation, people are starting to talk more about it. On the broadcast, Carl Ravitch and Jimmy Dykes, they were enjoying the show. They shouted out a couple of times when the shots went in for Dalton, and then Jimmy Dykes made the comment during the middle of the second half that what Dalton is doing right now has to change the way people see this Tennessee basketball team and what it can be in March when they get to the NCAA tournament.
I mean, let's be honest here, Josh. Florida is not one of the best teams in the SEC. They're not one of the worst teams in the SEC. And Dalton was able to go for 39. If we're concerned about Dalton being able to hit 40 points later, I don't think we need to be, because Tennessee is going to play some teams later on in the schedule that's worse than Florida at home. So Dalton will have opportunity. He's on a hot streak right now. So he'll have another chance to go out there and drop 40. He is seeing the game in a totally different way. Ron Slay talked about this on yesterday, where he was trying to dribble through some traffic, didn't do the best job of really finding his spots and knowing when he could take guys off the dribble. Now he's seeing the game differently. He's picking and choosing the right moments to get to the rim, understanding the spacing and knowing that the help defender can't come and cause him to have to either throw the ball out to a teammate or turn the ball over. So Dalton, man, is seeing the court. The game is in slow motion for him, and he's seeing the rim too. Enjoy it while you can, because everything lined up perfectly for Dalton Knecht to be here at Tennessee. And he's unselfish. You can listen to him talk about his teammates, and people are talking about his performance, but he is passing off to his teammates and how Jamal Meshack helped prepare him for SEC play, how it's easy because Zakai Ziegler getting him the ball in the right spots for him to be successful. Enjoy Dalton Knecht while you can, because you don't have talented, unselfish guys come around like this every single day.
Not at all. And I'll bet other coaches around the country knew he went into the portal at the time, probably checked in on, do we have a connection? Would he be worth pursuing? But are watching what he's doing at Tennessee right now, saying, how did this happen? He was a well-thought-of player in the transfer portal, but nobody expected this from Dalton Knecht when he put his name in there. I'm including Tennessee's coaching staff. Who could have thought that we'd be talking about this kind of production and offensive performance from Dalton Knecht?
Well, during the broadcast yesterday, they talked about how they asked Todd Golden, Florida's coach, did he know about Dalton Knecht when he hit the portal? Because Golden went to the portal, added several players on his roster, and like that's the most awkward, I think, conversation here is if you are Todd Golden and you had an opportunity to get Dalton Knecht or any other coach, and you passed him up because of whatever reason. Maybe you didn't think that his game could translate to the SEC based on what he did in a different conference. But all those coaches that didn't want him, and Rick seeing what he saw in Dalton Knecht and saying, yeah, we got to add him to our puzzle because he's a perfect fit. We need that offensive production when we hit those lulls, when we hit those stale moments on offense. We need someone that can break us out of that. And Dalton Knecht is a perfect complement to Tennessee's defense, Tennessee's culture, what Tennessee does on a night in, night out basis on the basketball court offensively. So he is a perfect fit for Tennessee. But, man, remember we had a conversation at the start of basketball season about fans that try to protect their feelings, right? Every fan of a basketball program, like, you're going to feel that pain except for one. And last year, that was UConn. UConn fans got an opportunity to celebrate and didn't have to feel that pain of defeat. Everybody else has to feel that because it's a elimination postseason format. And people trying to guard their feelings would say, well, let me know when this team makes it to deep in the tournament, then I'll get on board. Well, if you did that, you've missed everything. You've missed last night. You missed Georgia. You missed all these opportunities being on the ride to celebrate a great performance as a team and as an individual. That's why just jump on the ride, understand that basketball is a tournament postseason format and only one team wins. One team wins, but you gotta let that guard down so you can properly enjoy what Dalton Knecht and his basketball team is doing right now.
2 days ago, we were talking about Dalton Knecht's performance at Georgia and trying to figure out where do we put this among top performances with Rick Barnes as the coach. And we had it in the same conversation as Grant Williams at Vanderbilt. I brought up Admiral Schofield against Gonzaga. Our old friend Will Shelton had this yesterday last night looking at the media guide from Tennessee. Post Chris Lofton, Tennessee performances scoring 35 or more points. Grant Williams had the 43 at Vanderbilt. Then Dalton Knecht last night had 39 against Florida. Grant Williams had another big performance against Vandy with 37. Then you had Dalton's 37 at North Carolina. Then you had Dalton's 36 at Georgia. So you have Grant and you have Dalton taking up the top five. Grant with two of them against the same opponent. Then Dalton with 3 of the 5. And then Kevin Punter 36 against South Carolina. Jordan McRae 35 against Georgia. That's it in the last 15 years. That's it. So there are 7 35-plus point performances since Chris Lofton. Dalton Knecht already has 3 of them, and it's actually 3 of the top 5. And he's still halfway through his first season. It will be his only season at Tennessee.
Enjoy it. Enjoy it. And here's a cool thing, and I was talking to Ron Slay a little bit during the game about this. The culture, this team allows Dalton to be who he is. Usually you have guys, they want to get their shot off. They want to put up buckets. They want to score. But because of the unselfish culture that Rick Barnes has built and maintained, and you've had the Grant Williams pass the torch, and Josiah Jordan James is a culture keeper for Tennessee basketball. Santi, they are the culture keepers of Tennessee basketball. You're able to bring in a guy like Dalton Knecht and not feel a certain way when he's putting up 23 shots in a game, when he has dropped 20-something points in the first half, 22 points in the first half. He's sitting at 37 points. You don't mind helping him get to 40 points. Like, you don't mind at all because you want to see your teammate win. That's not maybe possible at another place that has a locker room of 5 stars. Could Dalton Knecht do what he did last night playing for Kentucky with a bunch of one-and-dones? I don't know. I doubt it, but glad that Tennessee has the opportunity and the culture for Dalton Knecht to be able to do that.
What a performance it was. Tennessee gets the big win against Florida. They get ready for a bigger opponent to come in later in the week in Alabama. Alabama in the news last night with its win against Missouri. Alabama coach Nate Oates more so in the news. We'll talk about the latest with the transfer portal as well as it relates to Tennessee, as it relates to Tennessee's top competitors in the conference. We'll invite you to join us as the afternoon goes along as well. The text box is open. Messages coming in related to the portal, 865-656-9900 to be a part of today's show as we continue right here on Josh and Swain. being with us today. We are with you until 3 o'clock, 865-656-9900 to be a part of the show. We'll talk more Tennessee basketball and Dalton Knecht's 39 points. Jonas Adu with a big performance with the Vols beating Florida last night, getting ready for Alabama coming up this weekend. So we'll have more on that. Austin Price of VolQuest, Braden Gall of 440 Sports to talk Tennessee and college football. And we already have several messages coming in the text box, Swain, related to what today is probably the biggest story so far in college football, and that is Caleb Downs entering the transfer portal from Alabama. We knew that players would be leaving. We've already seen Isaiah Bond decide to go to Texas. By the way, Lane Kiffin sharing that story on his own Twitter account, noting the Lamborghini connection with Isaiah Bond. Plus Tyler Barron going to Louisville, it appears. So Lane's team, or Lane himself on Twitter, stays in the news. But back to Caleb Downs. This is a special kind of talent. We have several in the text box asking, so is Tennessee going to check on Caleb Downs? I mean, why wouldn't you? But with the report coming out, the team that was immediately connected to Downs, from what I saw, was Georgia. So you could see Alabama weakened by losing Downs. This is, again, a big-time talent. He started as a true freshman at safety. His brother Josh Downs plays for the Indianapolis Colts, was a big-time talent who went to UNC. But right now, I think the top contender would be Georgia for Caleb Downs. I'm not sure Malachi Starks and Downs should be able to play in the same secondary at the same time, but questions coming in. Hey, Tennessee could use some secondary help. Could we get Caleb Downs? That would look like an uphill battle.
Remember we had a conversation about if you didn't win a championship this year, or if you wasn't in the college football playoff as a coach, the number one question that you're asking yourself is, who do we need to add to our roster to get over the hump? As good as Georgia's roster is, and they've won a championship 2 years prior to Michigan winning theirs, they didn't have to ask themselves that question. Now, the question that they were asking themselves was, how do we maintain being number one? Is our roster good enough to stay at number one? But because they lost in the SEC championship game and was unable to participate in the college football playoff, I'm sure Kirby Smart said, okay, let me look at my roster and see how I can improve it, make it better, so that way we can be in the college football playoff. If Kirby's doing it, every coach in America should be doing that. Well, you don't think Kirby told himself, Downs, I got to add dudes like Downs. I have to get to the portal. I got to get over the hump. I would be surprised if Caleb Downs is not a Georgia Bulldog. Or we have seen that pipeline from Alabama to Florida State. It's either been Alabama to Georgia, Alabama to Florida State, Alabama to Texas. Notice the theme. Florida State, Texas, Georgia, all programs, all teams last year that were in the thick of the conversation for the college football playoff.
Yeah, top 5 teams when it came to the playoff being picked. Florida State just on the outside, but worthy if not for the injury at quarterback. That's what Tennessee's trying to get to. So I guess both are on the schedule. Alabama becomes a more winnable game. You see Caleb Downs go to Georgia. Georgia already was projected as the favorite heading into next season. I don't think a safety is going to change projections that much, but a safety of that kind of talent is going to enhance what Georgia is able to do next year, if that's where he ends up. I have not seen it reported that he will go there, but it has been talked about that Georgia's the likely landing spot for Caleb Downs. But there have been a lot of talented players. Anybody who exits the roster from Alabama is going to have some kind of talent. It's going to have suitors, but that would be the biggest name by far to jump off, including Isaiah Bond going to Texas. Caleb Downs is the kind of player that is an easy number one, regardless of position, I think, for people ranking transfer availability.
I mean, we talked about non-quarterbacks and what their worth is from the portal in terms of NIL. Caleb Downs will be one of those guys that will be worth just as much as a Walter Nolan type, just as much as the edge rusher, just as much as a left tackle or a lineman. He is going to command a high dollar. But when you are Kirby Smart, when you are Georgia, just like what Nick Saban was able to do when he was at Alabama, you can offer more. Recruits will take less because you have something that you can sell that is more important than money at that time. You can sell the fact that you're going to develop them and get them to the NFL, and you're going to have opportunity to compete for a national championship. So players may take less to go to Georgia, like they took less to go to Alabama. That's the luxury of being in the position that Georgia's in right now. Now, Alabama no longer in that position. They have to figure out how they're able to recruit at a high level and maintain that level like they did when Nick Saban was the head coach.
Tony in Dallas texted us and said, please talk me off the ledge. Tell me Heupel is going after these Alabama DBs and don't let Downs go to Georgia.
The first thing you have to do is try to make contact. If the players are not taking your phone calls, what else can you do? I mean, if you are a player like Downs or a Bond, you don't get into the portal not knowing what you're going to do. Come on, man. Like, you pretty much have an idea of where you're going to go. Like, who quits their job without having a plan B? Who quits their job without having a job to take? Like, that don't make any sense. So, and sometimes you get word that a player is going to enter the portal actually before they enter the portal, because you have their agent, you have their representatives calling around, getting numbers, seeing how much it's going to cost. Remember, and this is evidence that this happened. Remember when Isaiah Bond hit the portal, and you mentioned Lane Kiffin. Someone asked Lane about Ole Miss getting Isaiah Bond. Lane tweeted a GIF of someone sitting on a longhorn. That's what he tweeted.
Yeah.
And what do you know? A couple of hours later, a day or so later, Isaiah Bond committed to Texas. And at the time, I didn't put two and two together. I'm sure a lot of other people didn't put two and two together, but it all made perfect sense when Isaiah Bond picked Texas. Oh, Lane already knew where he was going. Now, how did he know that?
Yeah,
you know,
because he's not one of those schools. He coaches somewhere else, but he seemed to know.
He knew. So you have an idea of what a player is going to do, what teams a player is open to talking to before a player hits the portal. Going back to our texter asked about Josh Heupel being in the Josh Downs sweepstakes. Again.
Yeah, Caleb Downs.
Excuse me, Caleb Downs. Josh Downs' little brother. They got to take the phone call. Is Tennessee a place he's open to? I don't know that. But you have representatives for these players that allow these players never really to have to make contact with the school unless the agent has screened that school and gave that school a green light, gave the athlete a green light, and now we can talk to the position coach, now we can talk to the head coach. But I don't know if Caleb Downs is taking anybody's calls besides Georgia. I don't know. We can find out.
Yeah. Nobody's going to like this question. Maybe there is an answer, but if Caleb Downs is interested in Georgia and Georgia obviously wants him, why would he choose Tennessee over Georgia? What's Tennessee's selling point to Caleb Downs? It can't be playing time because he's going to start for any team in the country.
Any team.
So I don't know what the selling point would be.
Well, you know what the selling point is, Josh. The only selling point you have, we know what that is, right? It's we're going to pay you more money. That's the only selling point that a school would have, because you can look at the last couple of years. Georgia's put in countless number of defensive players, DBs. They competed for a championship. The only thing that you can sell to a player of Downs' caliber is that you're gonna pay him more money. That's it. That's like when Mario Williams. Remember, he was the number 1 overall pick the year Reggie Bush came out, the 2006 draft, and the Saints took Reggie Bush, but first was the Texans, and everyone was like, "Oh man, Texans should draft Reggie Bush." Well, the Texans picked Mario Williams, and then Mario Williams completed his first rookie contract, and he was deciding where to go with that second contract. Well, he went to the Buffalo Bills. At the time, they were sorry, but they paid the biggest money, the biggest bag. And so sometimes, as an athlete, whether you're pro and now college, you may want to pick the place that's going to pay you the most rather than the place that gives you the best chance to win. We see it in pro sports all the time, NBA, NFL. Sometimes players pick the place that's going to pay them the most rather than the place that's going to give them the best opportunity to win a championship.
See, before you went ahead and gave out the answer, I thought you were going to tell me is the riverfront. Maybe the Vol Navy would be the selling point to Caleb. Also in the
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry. In the text box, folks got to remember there are scholarship restrictions still in place. You got to have room to bring these dudes in. There's always room for Caleb Downs. He's the jello of he's the jello of the transfer portal. Everyone has room for Caleb Downs.
Always room. And if you don't have room, you make room. It's no different than NFL 53-man roster. If you have an opportunity to pick up a really good player or make a really good player available, you can demote a player to the practice squad. You can waive a player. This is where we are. You got to do what you got to do.
Yep. So we'll continue monitoring. Lance Herdwatch continues as well. Text box is open for you, 865-656-9900 as we continue this afternoon.
I've been watching for a while, man. My eyes hurt, man.
They dry? They dried out?
I think I need some glasses, man. Something.
When's class start? We're just a few days away.
I've been watching for Herd.
Yeah.
I don't see him. but Tennessee's in a good place because John Campbell posted a video of him working out, and he was in a right tackle stance working out. So, if I recall correctly, he played left tackle for us this year.
That's right.
Why would he be working out at right tackle, in a right tackle stance, unless there was somebody coming in that's going to play left tackle? Just put clues together, man. You know, Sherlock Homeboy over here.
Keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open, ears as well, especially for this show with you for another 2.5 hours. Riley Thomas producing for us today. 865-656-9900 to join us on Josh and Swain. This is Josh and Swain. Thanks for being with us. We're on 99.1 The Sports Animal. We're also on The Sports Monster, live in the Tri-Cities. Thank you for being with us. However, you are listening to the show today or watching, we're also live on the 99.1 Sports Animal YouTube page. Like, subscribe, stop by. We'll be with you until 3 o'clock today. And the 1 o'clock hour, we'll talk to Austin Price. We'll see what he's heard about Tennessee's attempts to land help in the transfer portal, as well as George McIntyre watch continues to be on. Swain, I think part of the issue there with getting an announcement set up is getting to school. We'll get Austin to clue us in on that, but I think he wants to do it at school, and because of the weather, there hasn't been school this week. So George McIntyre, highly touted 2025 quarterback, expected to choose Tennessee. Last week, Austin said by the time Austin joins us next Wednesday, it comes on each week thanks to Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, that McIntyre will have made an announcement, and everyone is anticipating him announcing Tennessee when he does that.
Yeah, I don't mind waiting on McIntyre because he's not going to play this year for Tennessee if he picks Tennessee. Lance Hurd, that's a little bit different.
You need that one.
But Tennessee, with Nick Saban retiring, I mean that puts Tennessee in a really, really good place for sure. And so we can wait. We can wait till he is able to go back to his school and schools open up and the roads are a little bit better for that to happen. I'm patient when it comes to a 2025 quarterback.
Yep. My kids' patience, by the way, the last few days away from school, it's been challenged, but they're doing great. How's everybody holding up with the Swain clan?
I mean, we good, man. We went outside. The first day we went outside, and the snow was a little bit easier to handle, make snowballs. Yesterday, not quite. That's quite the same.
I took a couple of shots yesterday that hurt. Owen's got a bit of an arm on him, by the way, it appears. But, man, yeah, packed in a little bit different yesterday.
Yeah, man. So we spent more time outside, man. Built a fire and ran around, spent more time. So, my girls were a little bit more tired than your kids. And so, my kids are older than yours. Yours, I don't know if a phone or if a TV show or arts and crafts can hold their attention like those things can hold mine. Mine was chilling all day long. So we're good over here, man. I think we got about another day or two. And then after that, I don't know how we're going to manage and survive.
Yeah, we hope everybody that's driving around today, that's out and about, is safe. A lot of people need to be on the roadways, no matter the situation. So we appreciate what you're doing out there and appreciate you hanging out with us here on Josh and Swain. We talked Dalton Knecht at the start of the show. Swain, we've had some transfer portal questions come in. We did have this question. One story is complete. The other one is in progress, but it was this. Who was the better transfer portal pickup, Dalton Knecht or Hendon Hooker?
It's Hendon.
It's Hendon to this point. What if Dalton leads Tennessee to the Final Four national title? That's a big ask as well. So that's why I say it's in progress. But Hendon took Tennessee to 11 wins. It's also football. He plays quarterback, and he was top 5 in the Heisman.
If Dalton and this basketball team gets to the Final Four, then the conversation will be a little bit harder to have. But Hendon was here for 2 years and played majority of that time.
He beat Alabama.
He beat Alabama for the first time since 2006. He did it at home. That atmosphere, that moment, I mean, you just can't top that moment. But that's a really good question, though. I mean, yeah, both guys.
Knecht, by the way, a little perspective too. He's 5th currently in the Wooden Award Player of the Year odds. Zach Edey's the favorite, huge favorite, by the way, at Purdue. But Dalton is currently 5th in the Player of the Year odds. 5th is where Hendon ended up in the Heisman voting.
Yeah, I mean,
For what
Dalton's
that's
on his way to being a first-team All-American, too. So
yeah,
both guys very, very impactful. But Tennessee would need to get to the Final Four, I think, before this becomes a conversation where Dalton truly gets the consideration of getting the nod. Right now, it's Hendon hands down, quarterback position, 2 years, Heisman Trophy front runner at one point. You beat Alabama. I mean, you beat South Carolina, and you are in the Final Four. So you got to get to the Final Four, I think, for Tennessee basketball. First, I had that conversation about Dalton Knecht being a more impactful transfer than Hendon Hooker.
Both players have outperformed what anybody expected when they arrived. I think that's fair to say pretty easily.
Well, I think people kind of expected Dalton Knecht to come in here and score at a high clip. Not
sure,
dropping
not
37 and 38 and 39 points. Like, I'm not talking about that. But I think there was more optimism about Dalton Knecht's impact than Hendon.
Yeah, that's right. That's where the comparisons are tough because 5 guys are going to start and play a role. Hendon had to earn the starting position, did not immediately. But I can say that for sure. Nobody expected Hendon to do what he did when he committed transferring from Virginia Tech. I think the thought was, okay, hey, maybe we've upgraded here. And of course, Joe Milton comes in. I don't need to relive the story for everybody, but both also have a chance to leave here having created great memories for Tennessee fans, and that's really what it's going to be about for the fans. So Dalton Knecht, 39. So is the Georgia 36? Is that his third most impressive performance? I mean, 39, it's at home, but 39, he almost went for 40. Maybe the 36 because it's on the road and they had to have it to win. They didn't need all 39 to beat Florida. I mean, 37 at Chapel Hill, so special. He would have gone past that if not for the ankle injury late in the game.
I mean,
he probably would have put up 40 at UNC.
I mean, which performance was more impressive? What he did at Chapel Hill in the loss, or what he did on the road at Georgia in the win?
Yeah.
Because, like, you think about the history of Chapel Hill and how many great players have played there. I mean, the rivalries between Duke and North Carolina, how many great players have played at Duke, and they didn't do what Dalton Knecht did, but it was in a losing effort. Georgia's
winning matters.
Was in a winning effort, but again, it was against Georgia. Like, if this was at Rupp and you beat Kentucky, then I would put that over what Dalton Knecht did at Chapel Hill. But I mean, the fact that it was at Georgia, and it's not like Georgia's all that great. Maybe the Chapel Hill performance is right up there at the top because you think about all the great players that have played in that building.
Swain, we will come back. We will invite you to join us. Text box is open, 865-656-9900. We have more news out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Swain, send some help to your friends from the SEC down there with the Crimson Tide. Another player, it's a big name, entering the transfer portal. We will tell you about that when we come back. Swain's going to go check to see if DMs are open. We'll return. Thanks for being with us as we continue on Josh and Swain. Thanks for being with us on Josh and Swain today. We're on social media. Connect on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Josh and Swain. Join us. The text box is open at 865-656-9900. We will keep that open as the afternoon goes along. Questions, comments, thoughts for the show, send them our way. And Swain, it looks like offensive tackle, highly touted member of the 2023 class who started this past year for Alabama, Caden Proctor, will send his name into the transfer portal. The news this morning that Caleb Downs will do that. He is the big-time safety from the Crimson Tide. Now Caden Proctor, who will be coveted, I'd say, by every program in America, just like Caleb Downs. So another hit to the roster for Alabama with the news that Proctor will go into the transfer portal.
Oh man, this is great. I mean, this is great, man. This is, man, you can't beat this, man. Thank you, Santa. Thank you. Little past December 25th, but thank you, Santa, for delivering what I asked for. I just asked for a little help. That's all. I just want Tennessee to be, up there with the Bamas and the Georgias. But hey, Santa said, you know what? If I bring Bama down a little bit, that'd be just as good. I was a good boy this year, man. I was a good boy. So Santa hooking me up, man. Thank you. Man, this is great.
You don't feel a little bad at all?
I'm smiling ear to ear, Josh. I'm happy. I'm good.
Is this what you've dreamed of? Do you think this is what Tennessee fans have just waited on, dreamed about for the last 15 to 17 years, of the day that it would finally happen? The top players that they also had to go up against would start to jump off. And by the way, it's not everybody, but Caleb Downs may be the best safety in the country next year. Caden Proctor, one of the most highly thought of young talents at tackle in the country. And we'll see what happens next, because I'm sure they're not the only players that will at least put their names in the portal.
I'm just glad that Bama can experience a little bit. I mean, just a little bit of what we had to experience a couple years ago. That's all. That's all. Just a little bit. When Pruitt was fired and we had almost 30 guys hit the portal. Like that's all. Just a little bit. Because I would love to beat, Alabama when Alabama's a good team. I don't want to beat them when they go, 7-5 or 8-4. Like I want to beat them when they're good. Like the 2022 win was great because both teams came in undefeated. So like that's how I want to beat Alabama. But man, this a little panic by Bama fans. Hey, now you see how we have felt for the last decade. Now you feel a little bit. A little bit. I think they're overreacting right now, but it's funny to see them overreact.
They've not experienced anything like this. So the waters will steady at some point, I'm sure, for Alabama. They are in the process of figuring everything out. But in the meantime, the competition, which is plentiful, is enjoying. And every opposing coach in America right now is trying to figure out, do we have a connection? Who else might become available? Because if an Alabama player is in the portal, that player is going to be wanted by somebody. And in Caleb Downs' case, Caden Proctor's case, going to be wanted by everybody. We'll continue the conversation as it relates to Tennessee as well, right here on Josh and Swain. This is Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us as we begin hour number 2 hours to go. Austin Price of VolQuest scheduled to join us coming up at 1:30. Braden Gall of 440 Sports 1 hour from now. We are with you for the next 2 hours on Josh and Swain. Thanks for hanging out as we're on the Sports Animal and the Sports Monster in the Tri-Cities today, each and every day from 12 until 3. We invite you to join us. The text box is open, 865-656-9900, as we have talked Dalton Knecht and Tennessee's win over Florida last night. Huge win at the Food City Center for Tennessee, trying to go 2-0 at home this week. Tennessee blew out Florida, and we'll get Alabama, one of the top contenders in the SEC, coming up on Saturday. We've also talked transfer portal movement. Tennessee continues to wait on official word from LSU offensive tackle transfer Lance Hurd. And then Alabama news, Caleb Downs, safety entering the transfer portal. That news coming out this morning. He was one of the most talented players, regardless of class, but he's a freshman this season who started the whole year for Alabama at safety. And then in the last half hour, news came out that Caden Proctor, who started every game at tackle for Alabama as a true freshman, will enter the portal. Joe asked in the text box, isn't he the player that got blown up on the last play there in overtime? That was J.C. Latham, their actual veteran offensive lineman. He was a good player, but he got beaten on that play, and it was costly in them trying to score on fourth down. Proctor had his challenges as well, Swain, which is not unexpected with him being a freshman playing left tackle, but was highly touted a year ago. The fact that he was able to start every game as a true freshman at left tackle for a playoff team tells you something about his ability. Every team in the country would love to have that kind of talent to try to coach. So Caleb Downs and Caden Proctor, two of the best freshmen in the country this past season, both reportedly going into the transfer portal. The initial report with Downs also indicated Georgia would be the favorite to land him, as we've had another text from Cameron come in and say, we got to go get this guy. Every fan, every coach would love to have Caleb Downs on their team.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta go and be aggressive if you can. If you're Tennessee, you don't have many opportunities to bring in talent like this. You have an NIL collective that's one of the best in the country. You're well funded. I mean, this is your opportunity. You got to strike right now. I think if you're Tennessee, and I think if you are another program out there in the SEC or outside of the conference, and you have an ambitious collective, you have the resources to go out and get a player of this caliber, you got to swing. You just have to. One of the funniest things that I've witnessed over the last couple of days is, some of the Bama fans reacting to their top players hitting the portal. I got a couple of friends that live up north, one in particular in New Jersey, and they don't pump their own gas. In fact, they're not allowed to pump their own gas. And imagine if that person moved from New Jersey down to Tennessee, and they pull up to the gas station, and they're just sitting there. Like they park at the pump, and they're just sitting there, they're looking around, going, man, when somebody gonna come out here and pump my gas? Why nobody's pumping my gas? Well, down here, you got to pump your own gas. The change that these Bama fans are going through right now, like they don't know how to handle a player that's good leaving their program. They just think it's not fair. Now they're pointing to the character of the kids, the character of the players. Oh man, these players hitting the portal, NIL. Man, Nick Saban was right about it. He was right about it. Well, you wasn't saying that when Jameson Williams transferred from Ohio State. You wasn't saying that when Jahmyr Gibbs transferred from Georgia Tech. Poor little Georgia Tech. Jahmyr Gibbs was their only best player, the only player they had. And he left them high and dry and went to Alabama. You wasn't complaining then. You wasn't complaining when Henry To'o left Tennessee to come down to Alabama. That didn't disgust you as a Bama fan? Did that make you throw up in your mouth a little bit? That someone wearing that disgusting orange that y'all hate would want to play for Alabama? That didn't disgust you? No, it didn't. Why? Because it was benefiting you. It's just funny to me, man, to see Bama fans complain so much about NIL transfer portal now that they have players leaving. I think it's hilarious. He's great.
Swain, have you ever gotten an IV? Have you ever needed to get an IV for any reason?
Yes, 100%.
You know the feeling after you get that IV, once it starts to take effect, the life that it gives you?
You feel great, yeah.
I feel like the Caleb Downs news and the Caden Proctor news, and really it's the Nick Saban news. It's just a continuous IV into VFL Jason Swain. And from what I can tell, Tennessee fans and other fan bases as well. Tennessee fans are having some of the same conversations, Auburn fans and LSU fans. You name the fan base.
Right.
Fans of Group of 5 schools are probably sitting back and enjoying this. But I sense you've gotten a college football IV into your veins over the last almost week.
The panic is entertainment for me. The panic is. Now, I do feel bad for,
LSU Matt texts in. He's love it, Swain. Get him. Yeah, go Tigers.
Hey, LSU, high five. Auburn, high five. Let's go, Auburn fans, LSU fans. Come on, give me a roll of toilet paper. Let me roll something. Let's go. Let's go. Like, it's entertainment to me. The panic, like the advantages that Alabama has had so long, man. The privilege, like them days of being able to punch a player under the pile and not get a 15-yard penalty. The days of holding continuously for 4 quarters and not getting called for it. Them days are over, Bammers. Them days are over. That's what I'm excited about.
You sure?
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
Let's see about that one, right?
It sounded good coming out. But I'm not too sure about that one. That still might happen.
Yeah, the Josh Mancuso and the SEC Shorts videos, I'm sure there's going to be some entertainment as well to come out of this as well for the internet.
Well, who's the latest player from Alabama?
Caden Proctor.
What position does he play?
He's a tackle.
What side?
Offensive. He lines up on the left from what I remember.
Has he played left the whole time? Like, since day one? Because,
I didn't see every snap, but that's where I saw him on those snaps. And there was a rotation at different times on the left side. But
I don't think that really matters.
That's what I saw. We were asked, could these additions to the portal work against Lance Hurd's leverage? Scott asked that in the text box.
Well, it depends. It depends on if Proctor has any interest in Tennessee.
Right. There has to be some kind of crossover in terms of opportunity.
You got to have an opportunity to get Proctor. Number one. Number two, what's his price? Is his price better? Is he better? Does he have more years to offer? There's factors here that you have to weigh before you decide, which option is better for you for Tennessee, Proctor or not Downs, but Hurd. But you're running third base with Hurd. Like, you're trying to get Proctor to probably answer the phone, and you got to secure who you have right now, and that's Hurd. You're in a good spot for him, so you don't want to mess that up at all. But I want him. I want Proctor. I want Hurd. I want all the good players. Don't get twisted, Josh Ward. I want the players now. I want the talent.
Yep, Tennessee fans want him too.
Yeah, everybody.
That's the thing, though. That's the thing. Is remember, while Tennessee fans and Auburn fans and you name the fan base, they're having a collective celebration about the negative hit to Alabama and Nick Saban being gone. They're also having their own private chat saying, well, can we get this guy? Can we get that guy? They're not having that collectively.
You know what I think?
Every fan base and every coaching staff wants those guys too.
You know what I think we won't see? And we've seen a player transfer from Mississippi State to Ole Miss. I don't think we're going to see a player transfer from Michigan to Ohio State or Bama, Auburn, vice versa. I don't think we're going to see that.
Oh.
I don't think we're going to see that. like those two rivalries, Michigan, Ohio State, Bama, Auburn, like those are the top two in college football. I don't think you're going to see a transfer between those two schools.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's actually kind of a dangerous move if you think about it. The idea of trying to pull that off, and I'm not speaking in hyperbole. Like something bad could happen. Somebody trying to do that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm not joking. You're not joking at all. Like
No,
that rivalry is serious. Like you can't go back home, especially Michigan, Ohio State. Like if let's say you live in Michigan, you're from Michigan, you go to Michigan, then you transfer to Ohio State. Forget about it. You can't go back home. Alabama, Auburn. You know what? If you went to Auburn first and you transferred to Alabama, Alabama's pretty much dominated by Bammers anyways. They'll probably give you protection, security for free. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different in Alabama.
be careful. Matt also wants to know who will replace Kalen DeBoer in 3 years.
I mean, hopefully, Jeremy Pruitt has served out his show calls, or whatever he is facing. Hopefully,
He was
Butch
hired on a
Jones will be
Friday
ready
night.
by
This
then, too.
this is officially day number 5 on the job. If we make Saturday day 1, Friday he was hired in the evening time. So this is day 5 on the job for Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, I think he's going to be there longer than 3 years. But if we want to have fun, I would say Pruitt, Butch Jones. I'm sure Billy Napier will be available somewhere. I'm sure Billy Napier will already be on the staff in some capacity when he gets let go at Florida. Pretty sure. So he's not Nick Saban, folks, but Kevin DeBoer is still pretty dang good. But he's a great head coach so far, and he's going to be successful. Just not as successful as Nick Saban. And
Yeah,
that's why we're
the
excited.
waters are going to clear at some point here, but right now, tide's choppy.
Yeah.
We'll continue
I see what you
on
mean.
Josh and Swain, 865-656-9900 to be a part of the show. We'll talk as well about Tennessee's efforts in the transfer portal, plus recruiting, the latest on George McIntyre, the 2025 quarterback. We have a lot to get to when Austin Price joins us, scheduled for 1:30. Braden Gall of 440 Sports at 2 o'clock. Football talk, more about Dalton Knecht as well, right here on Josh and Swain. Back on Josh and Swain. Thanks for being with us. 865-656-9900 is how you can join us. We are moving Austin Price back a segment. He'll be at 145. So just kept keeping you up to date on the schedule for the show. Austin, keeping up with what's happening. Transfer portal. I'll repeat the same joke for a 10th time. We'll see what he's heard when he joins us at 145. The latest with quarterback George McIntyre, 2025 prospect, plus recruiting for 2025. On to that next step. And Tennessee staff, like everybody else, is monitoring Alabama, who might be available, Washington, who might be available. We'll see with Michigan. They're playing the waiting game with Jim Harbaugh, but it's not just that 30-day window, Swain, as we've discussed in college football. There is the 30-day transfer portal window for everybody, but even that time frame extends out because of the bowl schedule. And then there is the new portal that opens up anytime there's a coaching change. So at some point, I guess it stops for a few weeks, but it is ongoing for some schools and has been for, what are we now, 45 days? Where players have been able to jump into the transfer portal as undergrads and still be able to go play somewhere else right away.
Do you think there's fans who are like bears and go into hibernation during this time of the year that say, you know what, just let me know. Just let me know when it's football season. This is too much. You think there's fans that feel that way, probably do that?
I'm sure there are, and I totally get it if that's your thinking. Yeah, just like there's some fans that love to follow recruiting 12 months out of the year. Not all college football fans want to keep up with recruiting for 12 months, and I get that. Transfer portal is probably similar. If it's an obvious difference maker, like the quarterback position might change things. Or if you hear somebody like Caleb Downs, when you hear, hey, this guy's probably going to be a top 5 to 10 pick in the NFL draft, you're like, oh, okay, I'd like to get that guy. But a lot of the names kind of come and go to a lot of fans, and keeping up with that for what feels like 12 months out of the year probably feels like a whole lot.
I mean, there's people that love roller coasters, the thrill of going really fast and up and down and around and upside down. That's not me. Mm-hmm. Like, I need my feet to be on the ground. Yeah. I need to go at a steady pace because I'll get dizzy. I'll get vertigo. That's Six Flags.
You don't want that.
Huh?
You don't want that.
Yeah, that's not for me. That's not me. But there are people that love that thrill, man. They love getting on roller coasters. I got my kids like it. My wife likes it. Not me. I'll hold the cotton candy. I'll hold the stuffed teddy bear. I'll hold things down on the ground. Okay, like I hold all the belongings. Yeah, that's me. I'll take pictures, but I ain't getting on a roller coaster. I think there's college football fans who are like, you know what? I'm keeping my feet on the ground. Let me know when the football season starts. Like I'm good keeping up with all the portal news and guys, leaving this place, going to this place. And there's some fans who may say, you know what? I can do National Signing Day. I can do the early signing day. Give me December. Give me February. I can do the signing day. But all the in between with the movement, with the transfer portal, nah, man, I can't do that. I'm sure there's fans like that, and I understand. Now, we can't do that. Our job is to follow everything, but I understand for those fans.
Kevin in the text box says, I'm a monthly roster inventory guy. There you go. So just do it like maybe at the end of each month, you check your finances. You make sure you didn't miss anything on a statement. You have to see where are my monthly investments going in. And then also on that 31st or the first to-do list, check out the rosters. Did I miss any movement there? That's a good move.
You remember when Jeremy Pruitt was hired and there was talk about Austin Thomas, who has Tennessee ties, that served as the general manager at LSU.
Yeah.
He was going to come back to Tennessee. And then he didn't. Like, he didn't come to Tennessee. The reason why is because there's a misunderstanding about his title. And I think he was expecting to be called the general manager. And Pruitt was like, nah, we don't have a general manager. We're not doing that. But, like, now, you got to have a general manager. You can have it labeled as a general manager or not, but you have to have a general manager. You have to do an inventory of your roster with the portal operating the way it's operating. So I think you'll see more staff members get the title of general manager. I know a lot of them are playing the role and doing the activities of a general manager, but I think you'll see more staff members actually have that title too.
You have to, especially at the highest level where you have the resources and you're trying to keep up with the schools that have those same resources or similar. And the battle for roster talent is unlike it's ever been. You have to have people in place that are able to help manage that 12 months out of the year. That's not an exaggeration. Sometimes you say, yeah, it's a 12-month sport, and well, there are a couple months where it's off. Not now. There's 12 months out of the year roster management.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
We'll continue the conversation. 865-656-9900 to be a part of it. So the news at Alabama with some players entering the transfer portal. Tennessee staff working to add a couple of pieces at least for 2024. What do you think about it? Plus recruiting. Austin Price, 20 minutes from right now. Your thoughts when we come back. 90 minutes to go. And you can be a part of the show at 865-656-9900 as we continue on Josh and Swain. Swain continues. Thanks for being with us on 99.1 The Sports Animal, as well as AM 640 The Sports Monster. We'll be with you until 3 o'clock. We will talk to Braden Gall of 440 Sports to see what he thinks about the portal movement, what's happening in Alabama, how it could affect Tennessee coming up at 2 o'clock. Austin Price of AllQuest in our next segment. He'll join us at about 1:45, and we invite you to join us in the meantime. 865-656-9900 to be a part of today's show. That's to call or text in. We go to the phone lines right now to say hello to our friend Vol Nation. Vol Nation, good afternoon.
Good, man. Good.
Yeah, Vol Nation, appreciate it for everybody watching on the video. Sorry about the feed there, but the question about where does this leave Alabama? How does Tennessee get in on some of these players that might be jumping ship from Alabama? And, Kalen DeBoer, he's putting his staff together. The biggest thing there to me, Swain, about Vol Nation's point would be the relationships. They're going to have to try to establish new relationships, find out where they might have had some, but with a lot of the staff coming from the Pacific Northwest, Kane Womack coming in maybe helps, but it's not like Alabama and South Alabama were recruiting against each other. That's probably more Womack with relationships with coaches, right? Throughout Alabama and the Southeast. He's going to be the new defensive coordinator, but that's the challenge, I think, for Caleb Downs or Caden Proctor or Ryan Williams. He's the five-star wide receiver that is giving Alabama a shot. He's been committed there, but he has relationships with other schools. Alabama's trying to establish those very quickly. So, like, if it relates to Tennessee, what relationships does Tennessee have from its coaching staff to some of these players that could be available?
Ricky Bobby said you either first or you're last. And, yeah, like, you could be last in that moment, but being second to a kid initially out of high school may be beneficial if that player hits the portal a year from now or 2 years from now, because they're going to go back to their second choice and remember those relationships. If it was a tough decision for that young man when he initially select his first school, then he's going to go back and think about those relationships he had with the school that was number 2 for him. Those coaches, if they're still there, that second school has an opportunity to get that player. That's why it's easy for us to look at Caleb Downs and just point to Georgia, because I'm pretty sure Georgia was right there as number 2 to Alabama when Downs came out and went to Alabama initially.
Right. So where did they have that shot before? But for Vol Nation or people that have been messaging us in the text box saying, all right, when are we getting some of those guys? Totally understand, because that's also a question every fan base is asking. How do we get some of these guys? And if you're competitors, like Tennessee's trying to get to the playoff next year, Tennessee's trying to compete with Texas coming in, or Georgia or LSU, you name the top schools. If they see those schools or Florida State landing some of these guys, it's going to even add to the, well, what about us? Why can't we get in on some of those guys? Tennessee did land tight end from Alabama, but he's not going to be an impact guy like Caleb Downs or Caden Proctor could be, or Isaiah Bond is expected to be at wide receiver.
That's why you have to know, man. You have to know, have some idea of what a player is going to do before they get into the portal. By the time a player gets into the portal, for 99% of the schools out there, it's too late. It's too late, because that player probably knows where he's going or the group of schools that he's going to pick from, and now that player's representative is talking to a collective trying to figure out, the right package for that player. So you have to kind of know. Like, that's why, like, if you want somebody to call you, you have to make sure you have a collective that operates the right way, that is organized, that's well funded. You got to have relationships with maybe that agent. Like, if you know Jimmy Sexton, I'll give that as an example. If you're a school and if you're AD and you have a really good relationship with Jimmy Sexton, then that's probably going to help you be able to land one of his clients. Well, if you are collective and you have a good relationship with some of these agents out here who are representing players, you're probably going to know before that player hits the portal that player's thinking about leaving, and you may have an opportunity to be one of those teams that may or may not have a chance to get that player to come to your school. So it's changing, man. It's so crazy, but that's how it has to work if you are a school that really wants an opportunity to be one of those schools that get a player from Alabama or Georgia that's hitting the portal.
It doesn't stop. And that's why Austin Price keeps covering it. He'll join us when we come back. The latest with Lance Hurd, George McIntyre, and everything else you need to know when we come back here on Josh and Swain. Sports Animal, also AM 640, the Sports Monster. Hello to everybody listening in the Tri-Cities. Thank you for taking in the show, however you are listening on the radio today, if you're streaming, live, on demand, however you might be checking out the show. We appreciate you hanging out with us on Josh and Swain. Austin Price scheduled to hop on in just a moment as you hear the glass breaking coming back in. When he hops on, you'll hear from Austin with Lance Hurd being the big focus. We were asked by Zach in the YouTube chat, hey, what about Caden Proctor? Is there a possibility there? As we've mentioned, every fan and most coaching staffs are also asking the same question, but Caleb Downs, highly touted safety. Caden Proctor, who started every game at left tackle for Alabama, entering the transfer portal. Those reports coming out over the last few hours. But for Tennessee, Swain, right now, the big focus would be Lance Hurd, tackle who played at LSU this past fall. He was a highly touted player in last year's class, as Proctor was. And then George McIntyre, quarterback in the 2025 class. So we get to say hello to Austin Price of VolQuest. He joins us each week thanks to Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. Austin, thank you for the time as always. Lance Hurd, what is the latest there as he continues, I think, to be the number one name Tennessee fans are curious about the transfer from LSU?
Yeah, I mean, and that's natural, right, Josh? I mean, you look at Tennessee, I mean, they're kind of waiting on him to, make it official out there. I mean, this has been a more interesting, odd deal just because, Lance hasn't spoken to anybody. You've not heard much out of his camp. Tennessee continues, in my opinion, to be in a really good spot there. I saw some people commenting on, John Campbell's video work yesterday where he was seemingly working at right tackle as far as his stance. And, a lot of people are speculating. And I think that's a pretty accurate, speculation that, if Lance Hurd were to end up at Tennessee, John Campbell would shift to the right side. So, again, I think you're kind of wondering why this hasn't become official yet. But at the same time, like, it's not like he's been anywhere else. Like, this is, a recruitment that's just kind of, one of the stranger ones I've seen, especially during the transfer portal era.
You look at Alabama, AP, and some of the players that's hitting the portal there. More recently, Proctor, a tackle. Do you anticipate Tennessee to reach out and try to make contact with some of those players from the offensive line? Alabama, Washington, some of those teams right now that has that portal window open.
Well, Tennessee has spoken with the offensive lineman from Washington, first name Nate, and I don't even want to butcher his last name, but they've spoken with him, and don't think they'll go with Proctor. Proctor's has been rumored even before he hit the portal to be going back to his home state of Iowa, Jason. So I think that's kind of where this thing's at. With Caden Proctor. But yeah, I mean, Tennessee's going to look at all available avenues, much like all these schools are. And, Alabama's obviously kind of in a little bit of panic mode just because you've had two of their marquee pieces, young pieces, starters this past year as a true freshman leave, in the last, 12 hours. And I think that's cause for concern for anybody in Tuscaloosa.
AP, to have a chance, if you're a school out there, you mentioned, Caden Proctor probably going back to Iowa. We saw with Bond going to Texas and Lane Kiffin putting out a picture or a gif of someone on the Longhorn. Like, you already knew. Those guys already knew where these players were going before they hit the portal. If
Yep.
you are a school like Tennessee, how do you have a chance with a player that hits the portal that may or may not have already picked their school before hitting the portal? How do you have a chance, AP?
Well, if the kid's not decided before he hits the portal, you have as good a shot as any. If a kid's already decided, it's kind of over. I mean, like, very few instances where the kid was like, I'm going here in his mind, and then it ended up changing. Like, there's so much tampering going on, and it's near impossible to prove. I think that's probably where the biggest hurdle for a lot of schools, whether it be, with your own current players or players at other schools is just the amount of tampering that goes on through intermediaries, whether it be 7-on-7 coaches, high school coaches, aunts, uncles, moms, dads. These schools are getting more and more creative on how to kind of get in the ear of players out there. Oh, you're not happy where you're at. Oh, you're not happy with your NIL. Oh, you're not playing. We'll take care of that. And then, kid hops in the portal, and, what's been rumored before he ever hits the portal ends up coming true, sometimes between 3 and 13 days later, right? I mean, you look at Caleb Williams. He went in the portal. Everybody knew he was going to go to USC, but he took all those faux visits, right? Wisconsin and all that stuff. And then he ends up where? At USC. I mean, you've seen that a lot. Jordan Addison was the same way when he left Pittsburgh. There was all that chatter, about USC. Then where did he end up? USC after he took a few visits. So, some schools try to cover it up with some faux visits, but a lot of them don't even want a kid to get on a visit just because things can change, and they don't want that to happen.
Austin Price with us, thanks to Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, Austin Price of VolQuest.com and On3. So Lance Hurd's official decision, mentioned the lineman from Washington. As it relates to the transfer portal right now, is there anything else to pay attention to? And I know that that's a conversation that can be fluid as well, but anything else in the transfer realm that Tennessee's looking at?
Yeah, you have the Stanford defensive lineman, Moy, who will be here this weekend. That's one Tennessee's already went and checked in on this week. Coach Chop was out there. Coach Harbin, he's a QC, defensive QC, has been very instrumental in Tennessee's recruiting. He's out on the road right now with Coach Martinez, having to have a second knee surgery. He injured it when he was on his visit with Boo Carter, I believe it was, back in December, had to have surgery, and then got hit at practice down at the bowl game. So he's had to have a second surgery. So Coach Chop went and saw Moy, over the last couple of days, and, he'll be in town this weekend. So that's one to pay attention to, just because at the end of the day, Moy, Lance Hurd, these are all players that you obviously want for 24, but they'll be here for 25. And I think that goes a long way, because Tennessee does lose a lot on the offensive line. John Campbell, Cooper Mays, Javonte Spraggins, none of them are eligible to return after this coming season. Same thing on the defensive line with, Omar Norman Lott, Omari Thomas, Bryson Eason, although I think Eason could technically come back because of another COVID year. But, either way, Tennessee's trenches are set to lose quite a bit in 25. So, getting players like Moy, Hurd, really goes a long way.
AP, any other schools Tennessee will be battling for Moy, the Stanford transfer?
Well, he was probably going to go to Washington. He had arrived for his official visit up there, and that's when Kalen DeBoer announced he was leaving. Yeah. So, I think they're kind of out. And at this point, I don't know who the competition would be. I think Tennessee's in a pretty good spot here to potentially get themselves a quality interior defensive lineman with a good, strong showing this weekend.
And then Austin Price, VolQuest with us. George McIntyre. How much is Tennessee really just waiting on the sunshine for him to be able to make an announcement, which would indicate Tennessee would get good news? But the latest with George McIntyre, and then recruiting for 2025, because I know that's part of the focus too. Yeah, it's supposed to have a junior day this weekend. We'll see if all that happens. I mean, is it going to clear up enough for people to get to town? I mean, that's the struggle. I mean, it's going to be above freezing tomorrow for a few hours, and that's about it. Everything else is going to be under freezing until Monday. And so, George McIntyre was, he never has announced his announcement date, but he was set to do something at the end of this week. And, they're not going to have school at Brentwood Academy. And so, George, I believe, wants to do it in front of his classmates. And so I think you're looking at when Brentwood Academy goes back to school, I think you'll see George McIntyre make a decision pretty soon thereafter. And again, I've said for months, and Tennessee is in the best shape for George McIntyre, and I will continue to reiterate that they're in a really good spot for George. And he has a lot of sway with this 25 class. I think mostly because most of the kids in the footprint know who George is, and
whether it be David Sanders or Rodarius Jackson, Caleb Cunningham, Josh Petty, so on and so forth, Cam Sparks, they know, who George is. And so, Tennessee, whenever George announces, getting good news goes a long way to building that 25 class with GMAC.
Before you go, is there a class to start next week, right? Is there a date Lance Hurd needs to get it done to be on campus? Like, is there a timeline for fans to follow? As I'm sure they're asking you for updates morning and evening.
Yeah, it's the drop ed deadline. And I don't even remember the exact date on that. Is it the 26th, 28th, whatever it is? I mean, I'm not really worried about all that. I mean, I think, the only, I think this is just a matter of, it's just a matter of just kind of waiting it out. The kid's not went anywhere else. I think if he was going on visits, and Oklahoma seems to have moved on there. So if barring something unforeseen, I would be shocked if Lance Hurd's not playing at Tennessee this fall.
Austin Price, VolQuest.com. That's what fans were looking to hear, as well as they wait to hear official word on Lance, the offensive tackle transfer from LSU. You hear from Austin every week on this show, thanks to Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, making it unique, making it special, making it just for you. They want to be your jeweler there at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. Austin, we appreciate the time. As always, stay warm out there, stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Josh, next time I talk to you, I'll make sure and I'll send over an autographed picture of Brent Hubbs so you can put it back there behind you and your shot back there.
Yeah, please do. I've got the Braves World Series. I've got a Joey Kent autograph. So the internet goat, Brent Hubbs. I'll add it to the wall. Happy to do it.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
See you, man.
Thanks, Austin. Austin Price of VolQuest. We come back. We begin hour number 3, heading to Nashville. Braden Gall of 440 Sports joins us here on Josh and Swain. Welcome back into Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us as we start hour number 3, 1 hour to go until Tyler and Will take over on the Sports Animal. We're live in the Tri-Cities as well. Hello to everybody there on AM 640, the Sports Monster. And over in the Mid-State, we say hello to Braden Gall, 440 Sports. He joins us now. Braden, good afternoon. How's everybody in the Mid-State right now?
Cold and having lots of cabin fever, but we're all okay. We've done lots of sledding. All 10 fingers and toes are still intact on the children. Dad hasn't hurt himself yet going down the hills. So far, so good, boys. How are we?
We're good. It has seemed, at least from the internet where everybody operates from time to time, Alabama fans not doing great right now with the changes that are happening. And it was not going to be a smooth all the way transition, but Caleb Downs entering the transfer portal, then left tackle, Caden Proctor entering the portal. It's going to be a grind to figure everything out for them, which Alabama hasn't had to do in this new era that we're in college football. What have you thought about it with the news at Alabama, how it relates to the Crimson Tide, and maybe what other schools, what other fan bases should be thinking as all of this unfolds here in the last 5-6 days?
Well, I think there's a couple different things here. Like, one is big picture, long term, is Kalen DeBoer the right answer? And I think he checks about every box you can possibly check, other than sort of like, hey, he's not ever really recruited. He doesn't know the high school football coaches in the Southeast, for example. But like, Alabama's got quite a large infrastructure that he just needs to plug himself into, and he needs to sort of be humble enough to acknowledge what he doesn't know. And from what I understand about him, he is extremely attention to detail oriented, very thoughtful, and a great listener. And he actually is very much Nick Saban. I think he checks a lot of boxes. Offense is elite, winning everywhere he's been. And from what I understand, Washington, one of the most modern programs in the Pac-12, if not the most modern program in the Pac-12 with Oregon, from an NIL collective infrastructure standpoint on the back end, they're going to be one of the best roster management schools going into the Big Ten, which means, to me, that's a reflection of the head coach. Alabama, a little bit behind in that category, ironically, in the SEC. So I think DeBoer actually pushes them forward in that category. So this is what happens when you change coaches, and when the greatest of all time retires, you have to expect some level of roster churn. Ole Miss didn't lose its quarterback or its head coach and is paying lots of money to everybody, and they lost their star running back. So I think this is part of the game now. So I don't think, honestly, if I'm an Alabama fan, like, yeah, it sucks that Caleb Downs is probably going to play at Georgia, but like, honestly, if you get the right coach, it does it, and he succeeds after Nick Saban, like, that's all that matters. And so there's other programs, and I think this is connected to what DeBoer did at Washington. Georgia, what do these programs have in common that are getting these players? Georgia, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Missouri, Oregon, Ohio State. What do these teams have in common? High level NIL collective infrastructure with support staff and back end build out. And so that if you're not doing that well right now, that's you're going to lose players. So you got to build it. And Alabama's going to have to do that with DeBoer. Auburn's struggling with it right now with all their turmoil. Florida's working on it. But the two Texas schools, Missouri, Ole Miss, Georgia, they're the ones that have done it the best so far. Tennessee did it very well out of the gate. They kind of need to evolve as well. So it's they've been pretty solid, but that's what the name of the game is now, is roster management.
There's a big celebration, Brayton, when Nick Saban retired. If you were not an Alabama fan, because there's anticipation they're going to take a huge step back. They will take a step back, but how much of a step back do you think Alabama takes? It seems like the board's making some really good hires, but then you have some of the players on that roster, and they're too deep, leaving too. So 2024, what type of step back do you think Alabama will make?
I mean, it's. I didn't even mention the big boy moves he made from a checking the boxes kind of thing. To your point, like, those are big boy staff changes, and you got a quarterback who finished 6th in the Heisman Trophy, who got better as the year went along as a first-year starter. He's back. You've got a coach who's one of the best offensive minds in all of college football, with a coordinator, Ryan Grubb, he's hiring, who just does absolutely brilliantly fun stuff to watch. Like, if you watch Washington, study their offense, they are just they're a joy to watch from like a football nerd standpoint. So they're going to be better on offense. I think they have a top 5 roster in college football. The schedule is harder because the SEC is harder, and so getting into the SEC championship game might be harder. But 10-2 and making the playoff is probably, unfortunately for Kalen DeBoer, the expectation. for Alabama right away. I mean, this is not a rebuild, right? Like, this is not a guy who's taking over from a program that wasn't just recently SEC champion and one play away from the national title game in the Rose Bowl. So there's work to be done, plenty of it, but they're a good football team, and they're going to be, and I would argue, they were an average play calling team last year. I think Tommy Rees, and then whether it was T-Rob or whether it was Kevin Steele, whoever it was on any given Saturday calling plays for them on defense, that was an average to below average combination of play callers. They now have Ryan Grubb or Kalen DeBoer, along with Kane Womack, who is the South Alabama coach, who, from an analytics standpoint, is one of the best defensive minds in the group of five, taking a huge pay raise, but a technical demotion to go from head coach to defensive coordinator. They're one of the best combinations of play callers in the conference now. So, again, I agree they take a slight step back. They're not going to be as good as Nick Saban. That's impossible. But is it going to be far? I don't think so. I still think they're one of the three best teams in the conference next year.
Probably too early, Braden Gall, 440 Sports, for this, because rosters are still being put together, and I guess coaching staffs in some ways. But how do you think the tier structure will look like in the SEC? Georgia's going to lead off that conversation, but Texas is coming in and is a playoff team. But Alabama, then that group of Ole Miss, Missouri, Tennessee, LSU, Oklahoma. How's the tier structure, do you think, going to look heading into next year in the SEC?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. I think
was that close to the order there?
Yeah, pretty close. I think the top three are Georgia, Alabama, Texas, and now I'd probably flip Texas and Alabama. I'd probably go Georgia 1, Texas 2, Alabama 3. And honestly, frankly, my instinct in the Big Ten, should Jim Harbaugh take a job, which I think he's going to soon, is that Ohio State kind of retakes that spot the way Georgia will retake that spot now that Nick Saban has left. So I think those are the top three. I really like the next tier. And it's Ole Miss, Missouri, Tennessee, LSU, Oklahoma, and I think you may be able to throw Texas A&M in there, possibly, depending on what happens from a roster standpoint, the quarterback situation. But I think A&M's kind of at the bottom of that list. I think LSU could be better than people think, because they just don't recruit they don't recruit poorly at all. They've got players, but I think the difference is going to be coach and quarterback. And I think right now you look at Brady Cook, you look at Jackson Dart with Missouri and Ole Miss. Those two schedules, by the way, also miss a bunch of big guys in the SEC on those two schedules. If Nico is special, they're competing for 10-2 in a playoff spot, which is possible. And then I think Oklahoma is very similar to Tennessee. And of course, they play each other in the first SEC game. But Jackson Arnold, by all accounts, is viewed by Oklahoma people the same way Tennessee people view Nico, which is, this is the best quarterback prospect to come onto campus in Norman, Oklahoma, since way before Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and any of those guys. Like, the Oklahoma fans view Jackson Arnold as a five-star, can't-miss, heir apparent, as good as Sam Bradford kind of thing, and which is how Tennessee people view Nico. So defensively, is Oklahoma a little bit better than Tennessee? Maybe. Is Tennessee a little bit better offensively along the offensive line? Absolutely. So I think it's Ole Miss, Missouri, Tennessee, Oklahoma, probably in that order, and then I'd have LSU and A&M on that tier. But what do these all these people have in common, all these teams have in common? They all have potentially great quarterback play. And it's going to be a fun year if we've got 9 teams competing for 2 spots in the SEC championship game and 12 playoff spots, and they all have great quarterback play with some really brilliant offensive minds running these teams. That to me is going to make for great football in 24.
I mean, Swain and I have talked about these fan bases are probably all having the same conversation. One conversation is, hey, look at what's going on in Alabama. Maybe laughing a little too hard, but enjoying their whatever that's happening. But also saying, hey, let's go compete, because there are more spots available when we talk about the playoffs. So Missouri fans, Tennessee fans, Oklahoma, these schools we just named, fan bases are having a lot of the same conversations, which once we get past a lot of the portal talk, should create a lot of fun for 2024 on the field conversation.
And like, get your shots in on Alabama no matter how good Kalen DeBoer is. Like, this is your chance, right? Like, get your shots in on Bama now, because if he is good, it won't take him long to rebuild it. Maybe there's one down year, right? Because the roster's too good for him not, if he is the right answer. If he's not the right answer, they're going to find out quickly. They're going to move on from him and hire somebody who is good. So you've got maybe a 1 or 2 year window here, maybe 3, to get your shots in on Bama. And after that, it's either going to be DeBoer's good enough to be the heir apparent to Nick Saban, or they're going to go hire somebody who is. And so this is your window here. And it still might lead to Bama being 10-2 and making the playoff every year, which is, ridiculous in and of itself. I don't know. Saban leaving it wasn't a surprise, but it is jarring. I mean, he's the largest gravitational force in our sport. He made everybody better. He made Georgia what Georgia is today. He made Ohio State and the Big Ten elevate their game. Like, Saban built all of this. And for him to be out of the game is not good for the game. It's good for the fans watching them compete against Alabama, but it's not necessarily good for the sport. He demanded a different level of accomplishment. And so it'll be interesting to see who fills that power vacuum at the top, especially with Harbaugh leaving at the same time as well. Also the second largest gravitational force in our sport. Like, Kirby Smart's not that guy. So, I mean, he's going to fill the void with a really good football team. But it's going to be alignment, conference realignment, playoff expansion, no Saban and Harbaugh. 24 is going to be a totally weird and different year.
Nick Saban is also responsible for a lot of coaches getting fired in this conference. So, hey, Jimbo can thank Nick Saban for a $70 million buyout.
Well, the irony of that, too, also, God, good life, by the way, if you can get it. The irony of that entire situation is that, like, Nick Saban refused to kind of do the NIL collective, but not like Dabo Sweeney has, but like he's kind of been late on the uptick on this. And it really was like Jimbo Fisher doing all the stuff he did on the recruiting trail that finally drove Nick Saban to come out at the meeting and like say what he said to get that whole thing going. So the irony is, like, Saban doesn't want to do this thing, but then he does it, and it eventually leads to Jimbo Fisher like unraveling. It's just Nick Saban can do something wrong and bad for his program, and still it screws up a whole other program. It's nuts.
Love it.
Yeah. Speaking of enjoying what's going on, you can imagine there have been some chuckles behind the microphone of Jason Swain today and over the last week. What is going on at 440 Sports, especially with the pro team there in Nashville? I know it's still trying to fill a void. So what's going on at 440?
Yeah, covering NFL coaching searches is so different than covering a college coaching search. Like, here are the 9 or 10 people we're interviewing. Have fun, media. Like, that's like we know exactly who they are. We know when they interview. It's truly totally different than, like, all these morons tracking planes that, like, no coaches are actually flying on in college football. So we got a lot of stuff covering the Titan search on 440 Sports YouTube page. So check that out. We got a lot of great folks working on tracking down who the Titans candidates are. Why are they the right candidates? Why are they not the right candidates? SEC Football Live, of course, every single Tuesday on the YouTube page there, 1 o'clock Eastern time. We're also doing these deep dives into each individual teams. We've got a deep dive into Oklahoma, some comments about Josh Heupel up there on the website with the guy who covered them for a long, long time. We did a deep dive into Texas as well. This week, we're going to have a deep dive into the entire state of Alabama, because not only is Kalen DeBoer in Alabama the new coach and there's changes in Tuscaloosa, but there is complete and total chaos in Auburn right now. So we're going to do a deep dive into the entire state of Alabama. Make sure you hit the notification and subscribe. 440 Sports on YouTube. Thank you. We appreciate it.
College football world never stops. Brandon, it's good to see you. 440 Sports. Search for it, subscribe, and enjoy. We enjoyed it today, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Yeah, look at all these faces. Look at all these faces. I like it.
Faces for Radio. They called him that for a reason, but we're trying to say hello to the internet as well. Braden Gall, 440 Sports, joins us here on Josh and Swain. We come back. We invite you to be a part of the show. Text box is open, 865-656-9900, if you'd like to be a part of the show as we continue on Josh and Swain. Back on Josh and Swain. Thanks for being with us on 99.1 The Sports Animal, also on The Sports Monster in the Tri-Cities. Hope you're having a great afternoon so far. Had a great time talking to Austin Price of VolQuest and Braden Gall of 440 Sports last couple of segments. Even with Saban gone, there is an Alabama effect on what's happening in college football. But right now, it's opposing fans enjoying what's happening. The main takeaway from our Austin Price conversation probably would be just waiting on Lance Hurd. It's a matter of when, not if, he signs on with Tennessee, if that's the proper description there. Also pursuing other players. Help on the defensive line from Stanford potentially coming in. George McIntyre, it's also a matter of when he's able to make his announcement the way he wants to do it. But the 2025 quarterback expected to come on board for Tennessee's class, let's say in the next week or so. The watch is on for help in the transfer portal and future help at quarterback.
Josh, I have something I want to share with you. According to Ben Thomas of Ben Thomas Preps on Twitter, Enterprise 5-star linebacker Zion Grady decommits from Alabama. Quote, the lack of communication was ultimately the reason why my family decided to open my recruitment back up.
Swain, you shared that information with what sounded like a joyous tone in your voice.
Man, this is great. This is great. If only I had some popcorn to watch and enjoy this. Oh, wait a minute. I do got some popcorn. Oh, hey man, just sitting back, relaxing.
Are you the lean back gif?
I'm just enjoying all the chaos that's taking place at Alabama. This is great, man. Popcorn was stale, but you get my point. Popcorn stale.
Sounds like the communication with that linebacker has grown a little stale as well. So there's another one out there on the market. That's for next year. But
Here for it.
They're trying to get things figured out.
I am
in Tuscaloosa, and opposing fans are having a good time watching them try to do that.
It's your turn, Bama. It's your turn. That's all I'm saying. It happens. It happens to us all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just your turn right now, Bama. Was that petty? Are you disappointed in me, Josh? I mean, because what I do reflects you, Josh. It's Josh and Swain. So, I mean.
It is Josh and Swain, yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm not embarrassing you. I'm not doing that, am I?
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm just wanted to make sure, man. I would hate to let you down, Josh.
Oh, I know that's a big part of your focus, too, when considering the emotions to share.
Yeah.
But the emotion you're sharing is shared by many, I know, across the Southeast, and really, my guess is across the nation.
Yeah, that's good news. Now we need to figure out, have you ever been to Knoxville, Zion Grady? We can communicate. Do I need to holler at Brian Jean Marie, tell him to reach out? Because he would love to communicate with you.
Last week when word came out that it looks like it's going to be Caleb DeBoer at Washington, that happened, I think, in our third hour of Friday's show last week. I think you forgot on Josh and Swain that we were live when that news started to travel, because you immediately started to look at remaining eligibility for Washington linemen. And it turns out one of those guys might be on the radar for Tennessee. The Vols have been in communication with one of their offensive linemen there with the Huskies.
Man. 2024, man, starting off right.
Good start. Good start since day one.
Yeah, basketball.
Nico's
team.
MVP performance, James Pierce, what he did, and now a little roster help maybe coming for Tennessee.
I love it.
The Oklahoma piece there too from Austin Price, noting that it looks like Oklahoma's kind of moved on with Lance Hurd, and there has been no reported connection with him in any other school.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean,
so if he's planning to play football in 2024, where else would it be besides Tennessee?
Well, that's the thing. We talked about this yesterday. like we all impatient. We want the commitment. We want to be able to go boom. We want to see Josh Heupel's Twitter account, tweet out boom and got another one, or go big orange, or whatever he tweets out. Like we want to be able to react to a commitment. So I get it. Like, let's get this thing done so he can commit. But it's not like he's taking visits. It's not like there's a threat with another school right now. So it's not a matter of if, it's when. And so that's why I'm cool. I'm happy with the position that we are in with Lance Hurd, and I'm patient. We don't play for another couple months, and he don't have to go to class for another couple days. And quite frankly, you don't really have to go to class if you don't want to. I mean, hey man, I'm just saying. I'm just saying, Josh. Let's not act like players at the University of Tennessee in the last couple of decades went to every class. Let's stop it, because regular students don't go to every class. Let's stop it.
Next time you see Chancellor Plowman, I think she might pull you aside for a moment there, Swain.
We can talk about it. I'm open for discussion.
Gene in the YouTube chat is enjoying the glee in your voice. That's the proper description. The glee that exists in the voice of Jason Swain and the joy in your expression as Gene watches on YouTube.
I'm just happy that it's beautiful outside, man. Icicles.
That's what it is. Yeah. The scenery of
white
East Tennessee.
Christmas, get a chance to make snowmen and play snowball fight with your kids. I mean, that's what I'm really happy about. It has nothing to do with Alabama football.
Okay. Because it felt to me like, as it relates to Alabama and the transfer portal, you're kind of like Nate Oates, just walking in there and shoving them on out.
What was he thinking?
I don't know. I just move the Missouri player on out of there.
I want to hear what he has to say about it. He better not say he was at the wrong place at the wrong time. He better not say that.
I don't think he said that. Yeah.
He better not say that. But like, you can touch your own players. You can go Tom Izzo on your own players. You can go Jordan Pruitt on your own players. Jimbo Fisher. You can grab your own players' face mask. You can do all that. But you never touch another player. You never address the other team's player. Like, you talk to your own players. You don't talk to the other team's player, let alone shove him. And I love the way that AL.com down there tried to describe it. He physically separated. Excuse me? Physically separated? No, AL.com. He pushed a Missouri player. He pushed him. Physically separated. Oh, I guess it's kind of like, he mischaracterized the truth. He didn't tell the complete, truth. No, it's called lying. That's what it's called. There's lying. There's pushing another player. Let's call it what it is.
Well, I think Jason Swain wants to physically remove more Alabama players from the campus down in Tuscaloosa. We'll continue to monitor for you as other fans say, hey, do we have any kind of connection there? We'll continue the conversation. Text box is open at 865-656-9900. We have an attaboy to hand out. We're with you until 3 o'clock today on Josh and Swain. This is Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us today. As we continue until 3 o'clock, Tyler and will take over on the Sports Animal. We continue in the Tri-Cities as well, AM 640. Thanks for listening to the show, watching the show, wherever you might be on your radio dial. You can stream on any audio platform and watch today on our 99.1 Sports Animal YouTube page. We did have Brian connect with us on Twitter at Josh and Swain and say, so according to Braden Gall, Alabama is upgrading in their coaching staff. Right. With the sarcastic meme attached to it.
Who was that? Who was that?
Yeah, I didn't take that. I do believe their coordinators this year will be more highly respected in 2024 than last year. But when you factor in for the entire coaching staff, Braden said they're obviously dropping off losing Nick Saban, but complimented the coaching staff that they are bringing in. I think both can be true, that they're putting together a really good staff that most schools would love to have, and it's still not going to be the same because Nick Saban is no longer the head coach.
Who did you say said that on the YouTube chat? What was his name?
It was Mr. Hunsucker. It was to us at Josh and Swain on Twitter, where we invite you to follow.
I said Brian Knecht. I was like, hold on now. Who's
No. He connected with us.
Gotcha.
Well, I should have chosen my description better after Dalton connected with the basket 39 times last night.
He did that. And Buzz Williams connected with his wardrobe change at halftime too, right?
Yeah.
I guess it made a difference. Texas A&M being able, didn't make a difference, excuse me, because Texas A&M came up short against Arkansas last night, man. Arkansas really don't look the same. Same team as last year. Kind of weird, but anyways.
Ron Slay said yesterday, don't give up on them yet. So maybe that is a sign that we shouldn't give up on Arkansas yet, but it's hard to win in this league, in the SEC, in basketball. It really is, especially when you go on the road, and that can apply to just about any matchup. So we also said, got to take care of business at home. Tennessee did that, easily beating Florida, and it looked easy for Dalton Knecht once again.
I think it's worth mentioning, and a lot of conversations about Dalton Knecht, a lot of attention pointing towards Dalton Knecht, and rightfully so, man. He's been great. But Jonas Adu, what he's been doing, how he played last night, we can't just breeze past the player that he's been. Being able to throw the ball to him on the block, and he's giving you the left hand hook. He's giving you the right hand sky hook off the glass. I mean, Jonas Adu has improved so much from last year. I mean, you have to mention him kind of with Dalton Knecht. Now, he didn't have 39 points, but, I mean, another game where he gives you a double-double, 19 points. I mean, he gives you – didn't have double-digit rebounds, only had 9, but 19 and 9. And last game, he did have a double-double. So, Jonas Adu's been playing really well, too.
Brian asked a follow-up. So are you saying that Kane Womack as a defensive coordinator is an upgrade over T-Rob and Kevin Steele? Time will tell.
Over Kevin Steele, yeah.
Yeah, but I think in the Kevin Steele conversation, I think everybody legitimately in the industry will say, yeah, they've upgraded in that regard. With all due respect to Kevin Steele and what he's accomplished in his career, he announced recently he's retiring.
Yeah. Coordinators, I think they've upgraded. But
yeah. As a staff and a head coach, that can change the conversation.
No.
But
no
conversation. No. Ryan Grubb, Nick Saban tried to hire a year ago.
There's no conversation. Staff, no. No, Josh. No. Coordinators, yes. This is simple. There's no conversation. It's really easy. It's not debatable.
Okay. Well, but when I said staff, I meant below the head coach. You factor in Saban. No.
Okay. Below the head coach, all right.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how many analysts they're going to have. What they have this past year, about 500. So I don't know. I'm joking, but they got to go produce because they also might not have the same level of talent over the next few years because what they had the last few is about as good as it got in college football. Times are changing, though. Everybody's recognizing that, especially in Tuscaloosa. 865-656-9900 to connect in the text box as well. Before we close out this segment, let's hand out today's Attaboy. Swain, we hand out attaboys and attagirls every day thanks to Native Design and Hardscape, nativetn.com, the website. Which direction do we go today?
I'm going down to Alabama. Hartselle, Alabama, which is like a couple minutes outside of Huntsville, aka Vol Country. 46-year-old woman, she loses 154 pounds and then wins Miss America and becomes a model. Dana Bradley, a 46-year-old woman from Hartselle, recently been crowned Miss Alabama International in her debut pageant. Bradley is a mother, a homemaker, embarked on a remarkable journey after her doctors warned her 4 years ago about her health. Motivated by the tragic loss of her own mother due to neglecting her health, Bradley took charge of her well-being. Since 2020, she has shedded an impressive 154 pounds through a combination of diligent workouts and a balanced diet. So, yeah, she's a model. That's great. But the real atta girl here is the fact that she's healthy and she's happy losing 154 pounds. So, atta girl to Dana Bradley of Hartselle, Alabama.
Incredible story. Absolutely love it. Atta-girl. We hand out atta-girls, atta-boys each day thanks to Native Design and Hardscape. I mentioned their website. You can go to nativetn.com. You can call 865-310-3256 as Jacob Dunaway and his team will make sure they help you with whatever you're looking to get done with your outdoor space. That can be at your home. That can be with your business. Get in touch with Native Design and Hardscape, Knoxville's premier landscaping and hardscape designer. Find them online, nativetn.com. We'll come back for a final segment of Josh and Swain. We have the Power Poll coming up. Tyler and Will at 3 o'clock. Final segment on 99.1 The Sports Animal and The Sports Monster. segment of today's show. We've had a lot of fun. Swain's had a lot of fun on today's show with some of the challenges Alabama has already faced and continued to face during our 3 hours on the air. If you want to go back and listen to the show, any of our conversation, which included Austin Price joining us in the 145 segment, talking about Lance Hurd and his full expectation that the offensive tackle from LSU will play for Tennessee in 2024, plus Braden Gall at the start of this hour. Search Josh and Swain anywhere you get your podcasts. You can go back and listen on demand anytime, thanks to Beatty Chevrolet. We've talked basketball today as well. 39 for Dalton Knecht. You're right about Jonas Adu as well. When he plays like that, Tennessee's going to be a tough team to beat. When Knecht and Adu together can play like that, they're a tough offense to stop. So that was huge last night in their performance against Florida, with Alabama coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, nice crowd, too.
Yeah.
No surprise to see that many people. They must have four-wheel drive. Those people at the game may not live on hills like me and may have four-wheel drive, unlike me. So they were able to get to the game, no problem.
Well, you know what? And I say this not jokingly at all. We talk about, we get into the middle of the season, there can be frustration over a basketball loss, and you hear they're going to lose in March. But we also have to keep in mind the crowds at Tennessee's home arena are always great.
Always.
And last night was a reminder of that. So there can be frustration, and frustration can become loud and get talked about a lot. The support has been there too. The big games provide great environments at the Food City Center. So last night, with the elements outside and the weather, that was a reminder of fan support too.
Yeah, 100%. And we understand that you say stuff that you don't mean when you get emotional. Like, we get it.
Yeah. So as an example, you're not really happy for Alabama's demise, at least in the short term.
I'm not that emotional. I'm pretty level-headed right now, and I am happy about what's going on right now.
You'll be happy for us to close out the show probably in a couple minutes. Before we do that, let's hit today's power poll.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. What we got today?
All right, Swain, we'll go quicker here, and this could change in the jobs that are open. We'll see what happens in Philly and Dallas, but the NFL coaching search continues. What are the top jobs? We're going to go top three NFL head coaching vacancies right now.
Yeah, right now I'm going with Seattle, number one. I think the stability inside that organization is what makes it the most attractive. Geno Smith, is he a franchise quarterback for the next 10 years? I don't know, but I got Seattle number one. I got the Chargers number two. Really talented roster. It's in LA. Come on. And then number three, I'm going with the Atlanta Falcons. Talented roster who just needs a quarterback. Those are my top three.
Okay, we have similar line of thinking, and quarterback matters in this conversation, doesn't it? So I have Atlanta just outside that top three because I worry about it, but there's talent around it. If you can get the right quarterback in place, maybe you can find a free agent, a veteran that can come in and take advantage of the pieces that you can get the ball to. Robinson and Pitts, at some point he has to be used, and I like Drake London a lot as well. I have Seattle number three. I have Washington number two. Because they have that high draft pick and a vulnerable division all of a sudden. Philly's trying to figure things out. Dallas is Dallas. Washington, if they get the right quarterback, which they could in the draft, becomes a desirable place. And Snyder's not the owner anymore.
But we don't know if the ownership is going to be actually good.
Dallas has the ownership in that division, but I have the Chargers number one. There's actually not a ton of pressure because the fan base is, I don't know if it's even there. And then you have a quarterback that you can absolutely build around in Justin Herbert. That is the Power Poll, our top three as of now NFL coaching vacancies. The Power Poll presented by Alcoa 10 Federal Credit Union, your less red tape banking alternative. Riley Thomas producing today. Thank you again, big time. We appreciate you. We'll see you tomorrow at noon on Josh and Swain.